Good evening, everyone. Has everyone had a great time so far? Hi, I'm Jennifer Sachs, and I am the president of the Board of Directors for Baltimore Child Abuse Center. On behalf of the Board of Directors, I want to thank all of you so much for being here tonight for our fourth Be a Hero event. I also want to take this time to thank, I feel like I sound so loud. Also want to take this time to thank the Be a Hero committee chairs, Colby and Casey Simon, Jamie Smith and Christian Merlot, and Jody and Jeff Key. And a huge thank you to our Be a Hero committee and the many volunteers who made tonight possible. Baltimore Child Abuse Center stands as one of the premier children's advocacy centers, not only in Maryland, but in the entire country. We continuously help thousands of children and families heal from the wounds of sexual abuse and trauma. We are often the voice, and sometimes the only voice, of children in Annapolis while advocating for laws to protect children. We educate thousands of caregivers on ways to recognize and to prevent abuse. We've worked hard to reduce human trafficking, and we've raised awareness on all of these issues. The work of BCAC takes many heroes to make it happen. People who have come forward, donated their time and money, and made a difference. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce one such hero who continues to make a difference so that many others can have a chance to recover from abuse, or even better, never fall victim. She is one of the strongest and one of the most brave women that I know. And over the last 5 years, I have watched her face her fears, advocate for children and families, and continue to make a difference in our community by standing up and talking about her experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce our Vice President of the Board of Directors, my very close and dear friend, and my own personal hero, Colby Simon.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us at Be a Hero tonight. You each matter and make a difference in the lives of children you'll never meet and who will never know you for your generosity, so thank you. To better understand my unyielding passion for the work done at BCAC and why this work is so crucial in the lives of children, I am sharing my life experience with all of you. Roughly 6 years ago, just as the Penn State case was beginning to hit the evening news, I received a phone call while waiting in line to pick up a sandwich at the wine merchant. The phone rang, and in that instant, my life turned upside down. My callers were two people I know and love, and they had one question for me. Did David do it to you too? You see, David is my older cousin, but he's also my abuser, so this question took me by surprise. My answer was yes, and I was told he did it to them too. It had never crossed my mind that there were other people being abused by David. I don't remember eating that wine merchant sandwich, but I do remember being tossed back to being a scared, frightened, and hurt child after that phone call. When I was close to 12 years old, I was staying at David's home while my family was out of town. His parents were watching me, but had gone out for the evening, so David was left in charge. 3 of us had been playing video games when David and his brother began to fight. I left the room because their fights had a way of turning violent, and I learned years before that was a really good time to clear out. On my way downstairs, away from the fighting, I stopped off in David's room. There were photos on the wall of my older cousin with his friends. There was one of him in his new convertible with other teens around. He looked popular and happy in the photo, the guy who had it all. But in the coming minutes, he became the guy who took it all from me. He found me in his room, and he left me no chance to escape. He was older and larger, and he had no problem pushing me onto his bed. I'm not sure how long I was there, but I know how hard I fought. I screamed and begged with him, "Please do not do this to me," and no, until he covered my mouth with his hands to muffle my screams. David then raped me. Afterwards, when I was let up and was crying and moving to leave the room, he got right in my face and yelled, "Jesus Christ, Colby, I was just kidding around." That night in their guest room, I was too afraid to even take a shower. The one thing I wanted most. Too afraid he might come back for me. I called a friend at one point from school. This was before cell phones, so I was on their house phone. I was afraid someone would pick up and hear me. I was going to tell my friend, but when he answered, I just cried into the phone and ended up telling him I missed my parents. I could not tell. That is when I made the choice not to tell my family, or really anyone, that I'd been sexually abused by my own cousin. We were a very tight-knit family, and I decided that night while laying awake, if I told, I would tear my family apart. I thought if I kept silent about it, I could spare everyone else. It was an awful and confusing choice, because David was someone I thought I loved and trusted. So I stayed quiet, and instead was filled with shame and self-loathing for many years. I wanted desperately to tell my parents what had happened. I remember after they picked me up, going out to eat, and thinking to myself the entire time, "You can do this." I never thought, "You can tell them." Instead, it was, "You can do this. You can keep quiet about what happened." I wanted so badly to blurt it all out and unburden myself. In the years that followed, I wrestled with many of the issues other sexual abuse survivors wrestle with. I had bulimia, I did not respect my own body, and at my darkest points flirted with the idea of suicide. Like many victims of adverse childhood experiences, I made poor choices. One of those times, after drinking too much in college, I was raped while passed out in my own vomit. I ended up in a violent and controlling first marriage at an early age. Amazingly, I left, and I learned a lot about myself in the process. My world came crashing back down that day inside the wine merchant when I received that phone call. Because for all those years, I lived under the illusion that I was the only one. I kept quiet to keep my family safe from this. But what if by keeping quiet, I let David hurt other people I know and love? The guilt was crushing. I had 2 young daughters at home and an amazing marriage to a man I love with all my being. I had finally left things in the past, and then the past came calling. The months that followed were honestly hell for me. I tried to hide it, fake it in my day-to-day, but I spent many evenings in a ball on my closet floor crying. I was incredibly lucky to have an amazing group of friends get me through it. My parents were loving and supportive. With the knowledge of other victims came a lot of other challenges for me. I uncovered many other memories of prior abuse by David. The abuse spanned several years and even more states. The realization that I was abused was nothing new, but that I'd actually kept so much of it from myself for so long caused me a lot of additional pain and self-anger. I went back into therapy, lots of therapy, lots of talking about the past. Then I changed the type of therapy, and I found much better results. It turned out for me, with active post-traumatic stress disorder, talking about the past wasn't propelling me forward. It was keeping me stuck there. So here's where I get to the really good part of the story. The part where I found my voice with the help of my own heroes. I'd begun to talk to people I knew about what had happened to me. I told a friend who was on the board of BCAC. She suggested I come see the center so I could better understand where kids now get to go to share their stories and begin to heal from trauma. A place that feels safe. So I took the first step and I made an appointment for a tour of BCAC. I will never forget stepping off the elevator for the first time onto the fourth floor there. I looked up and I saw these butterflies colored by children dangling from the ceiling. I knew those butterflies belonged to other children who had likely faced sexual abuse. The feeling was so powerful for me that I had to bend over and take a knee. I was overcome with emotion. That is when it was explained to me that these are the children that likely will be better off. They're the ones that got to report. They are the lucky ones who started a metamorphosis of their own so they can hopefully go back to having a childhood free from fear and violence. They don't have the decades of swallowing down their pain and emotions. They have already learned that silence is not golden. That day I didn't realize it, but I'd also begun my own metamorphosis. To borrow some lyrics from my favorite band, for many years unknowingly, I had held the hand that held me down, allowing the pain of abuse to permeate so many areas of my life, but now it was time to rise above. I stopped being the victim and began the transition to survivor. After more than 20 years of silence, I went and reported my own abuse to law enforcement. I wish I'd been able to report my abuse at a place like BCAC with interviewers, advocates, and doctors like the ones we have and the partners we work so closely with. It made me more determined to make sure all children have access to BCAC and the BCAC model. My work at BCAC is a labor of love. I have become unapologetically passionate about preventing abuse and protecting children. They are our most precious resource. I see the need to testify and get legislation passed to better protect children in Maryland. I fundraise so BCAC can continue to serve over 1,000 children a year. I am so proud to have seen the work we do grow, expand, and become proactive. BCAC is on the forefront of abuse prevention and education efforts. The staff at BCAC is among the best in the field, and the work they choose to do for this community and cause inspires me every day. BCAC has taught me so much, and it's also helped me heal. My family, my town, my school, and I did not have a BCAC like the one that exists today. Today we are here 24 hours a day, every day, and we help 1,000 children a year with our direct services. While I didn't have access to such a place, I am, in my own weird and winding way, a product of BCAC. I have learned that I can't unring the bell for myself, but I can be part of building a better outcome for today's children. I can't rewrite my own history, but I can work to see that children in our state get prevention education, so maybe they don't have to wish they could rewrite their own story. This evening I have shared with you my story as openly and honestly as I can. It is probably not that different than many other stories. 1 in 8 children are victims of sexual abuse. 90% of them are abused by someone they know. With those odds, unfortunately, my story could be the story of your best friend, your sister, your brother, or you. If you do the math in this room right now, I am among at least 50 other survivors. You are not alone. It's also the story for thousands of children in our community, and those children are now helped by BCAC. Please remember that childhood sexual abuse is a crime that thrives on and flourishes in secrecy. The minute you begin to shine a light on it, talk about it, and report it, you are helping prevention efforts. BCAC educated over 6,000 professionals across the nation last year. That work protected over 30,000 children. BCAC pushed for and passed legislation to improve the awareness that children and mandated reporters have around preventing and reporting abuse at home, in school, and online. BCAC connects survivors of abuse with treatment, runs groups like Divas, sits in courts with children they see, and starting this summer, we will have therapy on site available for any child who needs it for free. Think about what if there had been a BCAC when each of us in this room were victimized by someone we trusted and loved. Just think how our lives would have been different, what pain we would have been spared, and how we would have recovered earlier, how other victims would have been spared the same pain we endured. You can't change the past, but you can change someone else's future. Help me tonight to effect change and the futures of many children. Please help to support the work of BCAC. These life-changing and life-saving services must be funded. Join me in this fight by generously donating to BCAC. Your gift will matter. These children need our help to be protected from future abuse and trauma.
Colby Simon, ladies and gentlemen.